Hello, I'm Peter Jenks, the rector here at St. John's Church in Thomaston, Maine. And I'd like to talk about the gospel that is assigned for today, this 12th of September 2021. It's a story from the Gospel of Mark, where Jesus gathers his followers together and asks them, "Who do people say that I am?" They say, "Well, some say you're John the Baptist, some say you're Elijah the prophet." Then he turns to them and says, "Who do you say that I am?" Peter looks at him and says, "You're the Messiah." And then Jesus goes on to tell them that he is going to have to suffer, and he'll be betrayed and killed, and 3 days later rise from the dead. And while Peter says, this can't be, you're the Messiah, this is not what's supposed to happen, Jesus rebukes him and then goes on to say that those who seek to save their life will lose it. And that we need to take up our cross and follow the Lord. The idea that we have of God, what we want of God. For Peter was a Messiah. The people of Israel, they were looking for someone to save them from the occupation. The basic dimension of religion is our need for God when we are in distress. Our ship is sinking. God help us. My child is ill. God help him. I need a miracle. We're in financial distress or family crises. God help us get through this time. This is a basic human drive, even for someone who may espouse no faith at all. But when the dire crisis comes, there is an appeal to God for a miracle, for some help. God, come down and somehow fix things. And yet God did come down. God came down to be with them, the Messiah, the Son of God. But it wasn't to fix. It wasn't to somehow make everything different so that we can go on our life without God. Just kind of fix everything so we can get on with our life. Rather, Jesus came into the world as God to be with us through our life, in our distress, in our disease, in our grief, and in our longing. The power of God with us. The power of God working with us in the midst of our distress. Jesus takes those who have made that first step of appeal to God and says, let's go deeper. Let's go deeper. Your expectation is if everything is better, God is, yay, God is with us. But if it doesn't, where were you, God? Rather there, Jesus says, think differently about your relationship with God. Think differently about the experience you have with God. To go deeper in prayer. So we're no longer just wanting an answer that gets us to move on with our life, but rather it gets us to be with God, to see God with us, to give us strength to grieve when we are in the midst of loss, to understand what's going on in the midst of a pandemic, to find solutions, to work together as a people, to find in the midst of political division, to find ways to bridge the gaps and to work in ways to heal a nation. The power of God working in the midst of our lives. Do we have the courage to see God at work? To go where God is going in the midst of a mortal life, not wanting to be taken away from the problems of mortality, but rather into the problems of mortality, the challenges of mortality, the depth of love and joy, grief, sorrow, loss, anger, frustration. The power of God bringing us into the depth of depth, to the valley of the shadow. God will be with us. So in a sense, God's not answering our prayers when we say, just help me get out of this situation. And many times, I'm very thankful that God has not answered my prayers as I have said them, but rather brought me to a deeper place. It is a power of God. The power of God working in and through us. Let us give thanks to God and make that journey. Who do you say that I am? Jesus asks us this day. Who do you say that I am? Will we, with Peter and all his followers, say, you are the Messiah, and we're going to go with you and take up our cross, enter our mortal life more fully, that we might sing your praise and know you to be with us. Amen.